Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Art Whisper 88. On your screen you will see my Soho Urban Acrylic. This is dioxazine violet, cobalt blue, and Payne's gray. Now this is once more a 16 by 20 gel plate. And I will be using some more of the Strathmore 400 paper, which is 18 by 24. So I will start by creating a darker background. Let me start with some cobalt blue. Some Payne's gray. Now Payne's gray is almost black, but once you start mixing Payne's gray with some white, it turns more like a navy. And here is some violet. So this is going to be a very dark background for a first layer. I'm going to start by spreading the blue. Now I have to make a comment about the quantity of paint that you use. You cannot, and I repeat this, you cannot have a good result if you don't use enough paint. Now, judging from what I see on YouTube, I probably use more paint than most artists. But that has something to do with my fondness for capturing ghost prints. And you cannot have a good ghost print if you don't have enough paint. There has to be enough leftover on the plate so you can pull successive prints. Usually the ghost prints are the nicer ones, the more interesting ones. Like I say, my motto is the ghost always wins. Okay, so again I will use my mark making tool, one of my favorites, courtesy of the kitchen. I think it's successful because the silicone bristles are very soft, but at the same time they leave a mark where when you apply it, okay. Again, I will use my aloe vera stem. for these very fine, much finer lines. I think it's quite effective. Okay, here is my Strathmore 400 18 by 24 paper. Now I will leave this for about 5 minutes as usual. There's always some advantage to allowing the paper to absorb the paint when you give it enough time. Wow, this is cool. The marks of the silicone brush are wild. I had a viewer tell me that the swirly marks remind her of Van Gogh's Starry Night, and she does have a point. It resembles the swirly marks on that famous painting. Okay, that is a good start. Let me continue because there are still some interesting marks here. I will continue using Payne's Gray. This time I will do Rose Madder. And some cadmium red light. This time I will try using a color shaper. Again, what I'm doing is creating these different zones of color. I'm not trying to overmix the paint, just enough to spread it thinly over the plate. To make a good transfer. That's why I like using the small brayer, because I've gotten some suggestions from viewers, say, why don't you use a wide brayer? My reply was, I can create more textures with a small brayer than with a wide one. Okay. I'm really pressing hard on the paper. And I will leave this on for 5 minutes. Very cool. Now the edge is very rough, but maybe I can fix that later. I love the rich color of it. Colors, amazing. Okay, let me see what's next. Going to try some cadmium green, some magenta, some Naples yellow light, and some cadmium red light. This time I will use, well, let me see what, I can try the color shaper first. The flexible part of the color shaper helps to push the color down into the plate. Okay. The result is a very complex mix of color. Okay, let's see what we have here. I think it left a spectacular ghost print. Very cool. Going to see what happens when I add some translucent white. Now what I'm hoping is this iridescent white will react with the dark background. Let's see what happens when I combine that with this. And hopefully I can fix the ragged edges. Oh, I think this is a really cool result. You know, from the first few inches, when I pull it off the plate, I can already tell if it's a success or a bust. This, I think, is a great success. awesome. I think it pulled all the leftovers. Very cool. So this iridescent white by Nova, it's a great picker-upper. I think what it does, it activates the almost dry paint on the first layer, like all the leftover tidbits. It activates it and then it absorbs into the paper, and then after 5 minutes it pulls everything up. So I learned that today, and I will use that down the road. Now I will work on the blue one, the first one. So I will use more of this pearlescent white, which I think is a good it's transparent, that's why it's effective. Have some spots of magenta. And some spots of gold. Let's see what happens when these two collide with each other. Okay, let's see how we did here. It totally changed. It changed the first layer. Pretty wild. All right. The first thing I think of is silk fabric. It does look like textile. Very cool. So I will air dry all three of these and then recap and show you the close-ups as usual. Okay, everybody, here's my favorite part of this video. This is the first piece. It was a dark blue background, and then I put an overlay of iridescent white with all of these swirly textures. Here's a close-up of the surface. You can still see the first layer from underneath. It's the dark blue with the texture of the silicone brush. But there's a lot of tension between the two layers, and that gives it movement and interest. And I had mentioned before, this kind of reminds me of silk fabric because of it has an iridescence. See, when I change the position, it shines with the light, and that is because of the iridescent white. I think it's pretty cool. So that is the first one. And here's the second piece, which is the ghost print. I'm sorry about my voice. I still have a sore throat, and I'm trying to get by with cough drops. Now, I love the way the colors stay distinct, and there's an overall shine because I used the iridescent white as a pickup agent, and I think it was pretty successful. Like I say, the ghost always wins. So that is the second piece. And here is the third piece. This reminds me very much of Willem de Kooning's paintings because of the color scheme. And I am a big admirer of his work. Now I can imagine this being a very big canvas because the color is very expressive and the subject matter of this painting actually is color itself. So there you have it. I can call this my magenta series because they all have something in common, which is this color, magenta, which I rarely use it, but I think it's a very distinct and very expressive color. And thank you so much for watching and subscribing. And please visit artwhisper88.com. And the sales of the prints help to keep this channel going. I hope to see you next time.